Good morning, everyone. How's it going? Time for more free agency primer work. You guys know how it is. You guys know what it's all about. And today we are taking a look at another position that I would call moderate need. We need to address it, but how much we need to address it is a little unclear. And to me, the defensive end position is very murky because first of all, we need to figure out what we're doing with Carlos Dunlap. Are we going to keep him? And if we're going to keep him, how are we going to use him? But beyond even that, you have like Benson Mayowa. Are we going to keep him? Are we going to let him go? Are we going to let him play defensive end? Are we going to stick him at linebacker again? What are we doing here? And then of course, we also have the question of what is our defense going to be doing in 2022? 4-3, 3-4 hybrid, that massively changes the way you have to look at the defensive end position. So here's what I'm going to say. For the sake of this video, I'm going to be focusing exclusively on 4-3 defensive ends. Guys who can play in the 4-3, guys who we know can put their hand in the dirt on every play. So if you're looking for some of the high-profile 3-4 outside linebackers who we may be interested in if we want to start running our defense like that, that'll be a future video. But I'm keeping this specifically to the 4-3 defensive ends. Now I'll say this. As for how we utilize our players, I have always kind of viewed Darrell Taylor as a Leo, but Darrell Taylor himself has apparently said that he actually feels like he's better on the other side, which would be 5-tech. So if you want to reevaluate that and take a look at Darrell Taylor and say he can be a future 5-tech, then that drastically changes the way we need to look at this. And by the way, Carlos Dunlap, he's a little bit of a bigger guy as is, and at his age, he's not as explosive as he used to be. So you could argue that maybe he's starting to move towards that 5-tech area anyway. So how we're going to utilize those guys greatly affects who we should be going after. If you're looking at those two guys and you're like, I want to play those guys at 5-tech, then we kind of need Leo help. But if you're going to leave those guys at Leo, which is where they mostly project to be by according to most people, then you need 5-tech. So it's a little hard to sift through, but I'm going to do the best I can. The free agency market for defensive ends right now is mostly filled with some very old players, but let's try to find some good ones that are a little younger. Okay, my number one guy as far as a 5-tech goes would probably be Jadeveon Clowney. And I know people give me kind of funny looks when I start talking about Clowney, but I'm sorry, guys, it makes way too much sense. He would be a great fit for this defense. He's great against the run. If you give him a really good partner in pass rush, he can be very disruptive back there, and hopefully that's what we're going to have with our Darrell Taylor. Clowney is coming off a really solid year in Cleveland. In 14 games, he had 9 sacks. Now, this is, of course, where everybody starts saying, "Oh, he played with Myles Garrett." Just like in Houston, he played with J.J. Watt, which is the years he got a lot of sacks. He only had 3 sacks for us. But the thing to remember with Clowney is that even independent of his actual sack numbers, he's a guy who does generate pressure. He does cause chaos in the backfield. And he's great against the run, which we know is going to be important on this defense. So worst case scenario, you are still getting a solid player who deserves to play a lot. And the best case scenario is you're getting somebody like what you got in 2021 with the Browns, where he was legitimately as good as he was for Houston again, I think. So Clowney, I think, is somebody we need to take a very good look at here. He would be our 5-tech starting for sure. And that would allow Kerry Hyder to play a little less and maybe be a little more effective when he does play. You would probably then leave Dunlap and Taylor on the Leo role. There can obviously be some degree of movement back and forth, but that's how I would see things mostly playing out. And the concern with Clowney would be the money, because this would not be a cheap investment. Spotrac thinks he's getting 4 years, $51 million, so about $12.7 million a year. That is asking a lot. And Clowney is a guy who many people believe will not remain motivated once he gets paid. He's kind of one of those players who you kind of want to pay year to year almost. However, what if the rest of the NFL kind of realizes that and the offers aren't quite there? There are some big names in the defensive end market this offseason. It's just a lot of them are flawed and a lot of them are old. But let's say Clowney doesn't get this big offer. Remember, Clowney expected $100 million a couple off seasons ago, and he got $12 million. What if you could get him for like 2 years, $25 million? Or even something like 2 years, $20 million? That's a little more palatable, right? Now, granted, if you do the 4 years, you can backload it, but whatever the price may be, unless it's like $20 million a year, I think this is worth a look. The next guy I want to talk about, mostly because I know people are going to ask about him because he actually has hit the market a little early because the Falcons released him. It's Dante Fowler Jr. No. No, no, no. It kind of, you know what this kind of reminds me of? The Deion Jordan. You guys remember that year we signed Deion Jordan and tried to fix him? Number 3 overall pick, just like Dante Fowler was. He didn't have success initially. We brought him in. We thought, hey, maybe we can get him to play like he played in college. That made him a number 3 overall pick, and then no. Yeah, I know some Seahawks fans are going to be interested, but unlike Clowney, who even when he's not getting sacks is still playing effectively, I don't see that so much from Fowler. Fowler had the one really good year in 2019 with the Rams playing with Aaron Donald and Wade Phillips, and since then he went to Atlanta and proved to be a huge bust. Didn't really produce that much at all. So I'm not interested in Fowler unless he's playing for like the veteran minimum, and I doubt he'll do that. He's not going to be expensive, admittedly, so it's not the worst idea in the world, but I don't see it. One other name I'm going to throw out here, and this would only be if you see Darrell Taylor as being like a 5-tech. Emmanuel Ogbah of the Miami Dolphins turned 28 a little bit ago. Solid career. Spent the last 2 years in Miami getting 9 sacks a season. And yeah, he's just a good all-around pass rusher. He is one of the guys who is probably going to make a decent bag this offseason because he's one of the few young and non-baggage holding defensive ends available. But I don't think it's going to be completely terrible because it's not like he's getting 15 sacks a year. He's not getting TJ Watt numbers. Those are the guys who get like 20 million a year. Emmanuel Ogbah projects to get about 10 million a year. Spotrac has it as 3 years, 30 and a half. So if you look at Emmanuel Ogbah and you see a Leo who makes sense for your defense, and you're also thinking Darrell Taylor's going to be your 5-tech because you feel like he's better from there, which, by the way, apparently Taylor himself thinks that he is for whatever that's worth. Ogbah is a guy who does make some sense. He is going to cost a pretty decent amount of money, but I don't think he's going to cost any more than what Clowney's going to cost you. So maybe this is a better way to spend that money. Again, it kind of depends on how you're viewing your current personnel. And yeah, that's really the main. Those are the main guys I'm looking at: Clowney and Ogbah at the defensive end position. That's honestly, those are the only 2 guys I'm super high on right now. You've got other guys who are good on this list, like Calais Campbell, about to turn 30. Well, he just turned 35 last year. Jason Pierre-Paul, 33. Jerry Hughes, going to turn 34 before the next season starts. Mario Addison, going to turn 35 before the next season starts. Takaris McKinley, kind of I think we can call him a bust at this point. Solomon Thomas, same deal. I'm just not seeing a whole lot here that I'm super into. But one thing that may shake free in the coming weeks would be Danielle Hunter. And this is another guy who I kind of view as a Leo. So it would be dependent on how you view Darrell Taylor's future. But Danielle Hunter is a very good player, but he missed a lot of time in 2021, only had 6 sacks. But it was in 7 games, so there's no denying he can still get to the quarterback. The 2 years prior, he had 14 and a half sacks in each season. He actually was in the running for Defensive Player of the Year in 2019. He did not play in 2020, so he's missed significant time in recent years, by the way. But that's part of the reason why he's probably going to be available to you. When you look at a guy who's only played in 7 games over the last 2 years, and then you're looking at the Vikings salary cap books where you can cut him and save 18.5 million, more than 18.5 million, and the Vikings, as we know, are over the cap right now, then they might have to do it. This is a guy who his future in the NFL is somewhat in question at this point because he just can't stay on the field. So I think the Vikings will probably release Danielle Hunter, and if he's out there and you feel like he fits what you're trying to do on your defense, I think that's a pretty viable option. This guy has been one of the best pass rushers in the league up until he started missing time. And yeah, there's a risk that he continues to miss time, but that's, again, most of these guys are damaged goods. Even Clowney. Clowney's damaged goods. I mean, how many teams has Clowney already been on? He's been on 4 teams and he just turned 29. There's a reason why he can't lock anything down, it seems like. So I like the Danielle Hunter thing, but again, we just need some clarity on how this team views their current defensive ends and how they plan on using them and what that represents in terms of their needs. All right, so that's really it for defensive ends that I like in this free agency class. We will speak more about some of these other pass rushers, but that will be part of a separate video when we dig into the possibility of the Seahawks being a little more, let's say, deceptive in 2022. See you guys later. Go Hawks.